Hello everyone, welcome to the 120 Literary and Jury Charge. We're going to start right out with the continuation of Ed Gein, the original Psycho. So we're going to finish that off since that's what we ended with in the last Literary and Jury Charge, okay? All right, here we go. Ready? Ed Gein had no particular compulsion to kill. What he needed was corpses. When during the hard winter months he could no longer dig into the frozen earth to uncover graves, he began killing to get his supply. Gein was certified insane and died in detention in 1984. One of his neighbors remarked, "Good old Ed. He was kind of a loner and maybe a little bit odd with that sense of humor of his, but he was always the guy to call in to offer to sit with the kids when me and my wife would want to go to the show." For years, children who visited Gein's house had been reporting to their parents that Gein had a collection of shrunken heads and strange masks hanging on walls, but the parents dismissed the stories as childish tales. None of the children ever reported Gein's behavior toward them as threatening or unusual in any way. Hedonist thrill killers. These types of offenders specifically derive sadistic pleasure from the process of killing, not the actual killing, but the acts leading up to it. To enjoy the act, they need to keep their victims immobilized and alive and aware of what is happening to them. They often kill in elaborate, ritualized methods and sometimes take a respite and revive victims who lose consciousness before continuing their plan. A surviving victim of Richard Cottingham testified that he wiped her face down with a cool, damp cloth between bouts of torture. These sadistically driven killers derive pleasure from the pain and suffering their victims go through as they die. Once the victim is dead, they almost immediately lose interest. Post-mortem mutilation and necrophiliac acts are not a frequent characteristic of this kind of murder. Thrill murders often involve three distinct crime scenes: where the victim is captured, a highly controlled environment where the victim is killed, and finally a site where the victim is quickly dumped. Thrill killers are often attractive, intelligent, charismatic, psychopathic personalities, relying on their charm to seduce and lure victims to their deaths. They may pose as police officers and arrest their victims. They are highly controlled and controlling, carefully selecting and stalking their desired victim type. They either maintain a carefully chosen location where they torture and murder their victims, or customize a vehicle, frequently a van, for their killing. The body is often disposed of so as to deliberately lead investigators away from the killing scene. All right, so we're going to stop there. Okay, going right into some jury charge. And this is on, the subject is damages. Right. And you're going to hear the word pecuniary. Pecuniary, I write that as P-long-U-N, pun, pecuniary loss. It's usually how it's said. All right, here we go. Ready? Ladies and gentlemen, the court instructs the jury that just compensation must be determined upon the evidence under the instructions of the court and not upon the statements of counsel outside of the evidence, if any such statements have been made. Furthermore, you are not bound to believe anything to be a fact simply because a witness stated it to be so, provided you believe from all the evidence that such witness is mistaken or has testified falsely as to such act. The damages, if any, to be awarded to the plaintiff are solely by way of compensation for pecuniary loss suffered by the parents of the deceased. You can allow no damages for pain and suffering of the deceased, nor can you allow any damages for the grief or mental suffering of the parents caused by the death of their son. The test is, in view of all the facts shown by the evidence, what was the probable pecuniary interest of the parents in the continuation of the life of the deceased. Under the law, a probable estimate may be arrived at by taking into account the occupation of the deceased and the income which he enjoyed, his health, age, and the probable duration of life of the survivors. Also the talents of the deceased, his habits of industry, his success in life, and the amount of aid in money or services which he was accustomed to furnish to his parents. This estimate you will arrive at from the evidence in the case. The parents had a legal claim upon the deceased for their support, and it is presumed that they suffered some pecuniary loss. The amount of such loss is for the jury to determine. If the plaintiff is entitled to recover in this case, he is entitled to recover, in addition to the pecuniary loss already referred to, the reasonable value of doctor bills, funeral expenses, and all other disbursements paid out as a result of the death. Okay. So we're going to read about facts of the body, part 2. All right, here we go. Ready? Drinking lowers rather than rises the body temperature. There is an illusion of heat because alcohol causes the capillaries to dilate and fill with blood. In very cold weather, drinking alcoholic beverages can lead to frostbite. The strongest bone in the body, the thigh bone, is hollow. Ounce for ounce, it has a greater pressure tolerance and bearing strength than a rod of equivalent size cast in solid steel. Type O is the most common blood type in the world. Type AB is the rarest. There is also a subtype called AH, but to date, only 3 people in the world are known to have had it. The substance that human blood resembles most closely in terms of chemical composition is seawater. There are almost 6 million red blood cells in a cubic millimeter of human blood. The entire body contains about 30 trillion red blood cells. When a person inhales several breaths of carbon monoxide, more than half of the blood's hemoglobin combines with the gas, leaving only half the red blood cells to carry oxygen. This has the same effect on the body as a sudden loss of 50% of one's red blood cells. 15 million red blood cells are produced, and an equal number are destroyed every second. The average brain comprises 2% of a person's total body weight, yet it requires 25% of all oxygen used by the body, as opposed to 12% used by the kidneys and 7% by the heart. The body has 70,000 miles of blood vessels. The heart pumps blood through the labyrinth and back again once every minute. A person breathes 7 quarts of air every minute. The average person takes from 12 to 18 breaths per minute. The right lung takes in more air than the left. The human brain is 80% water, more watery than our blood. The human brain is insensitive to pain. The suffering of a headache comes not from the organ itself, but from the nerves and muscles lining it. Neanderthal man, the first human being in the true sense, had a brain capacity of 100 cc's larger than modern man's. The average human heart beats about 100,000 times every 24 hours. In a 72-year lifetime, the heart beats more than 2.5 billion times. A woman's heart beats faster than a man's. During pregnancy, the uterus expands to 500 times its normal size. During menstruation, the sensitivity of a woman's middle finger is reduced. The human tongue tastes bitter things with the taste buds toward the back. Salty and pungent flavors are tasted in the middle of the tongue. Sweet flavors at the tip. Interesting facts. There's part 3, but we're going to stop there. All right, moving right into some literary. Today, I would like to share my thoughts with you about a problem that worries millions of Americans: high prices that keep getting higher. All across this land, hard-working men and women look at paychecks that say they have had a raise. But they wonder why those bigger checks just don't buy any more than their lower paychecks bought 4 years ago. All across this land, men and women in their retirement who depend on insurance and on Social Security and on their life savings look at their monthly checks and wonder why they just can't seem to make ends meet anymore. And all across this land, housewives wonder why they have to pay $4 for a pound of hamburger that cost $3.50 4 years ago. People who are ill want to know why the cost of one day in a hospital has gone from $250 to $350. Children who pay $1 for a candy bar want to know why that candy bar is only half as big as it used to be. When it comes to rising prices, it seems to most people that there is no end in sight. Many Americans are upset, and many are even angry about this. They have a right to be, because the ever-rising cost of food and clothing and rent robs them of their savings, cheats them of the vacations and those necessary extras that they thought they had been working for. Why does everything cost so much? And what can we do to hold down the rise of prices? For 5 long years, you have heard politicians and economists denouncing the high cost of living. Back in 2006 and 2007, when prices rose by 3% a year, everyone said how bad that was. In 2008, when prices speeded up by 4%, everyone agreed something had to be done. Now, when momentum has carried the rise to nearly 6%, the same heads are shaking. You might begin to wonder, if a rising cost of living has so many enemies, why has it been allowed to grow so fast? For years, in political speeches, the high cost of living has been as safe to denounce as the man-eating shark. But after the speeches were over, nobody seemed to be doing anything about it. There was a fairly simple reason why your cost of living got out of hand. The blame for the spiral of wages and prices falls fundamentally on the past policies of your government. When this administration took office 9 months ago, we decided that we were going to stop talking about higher prices, and we were going to start doing something about them. We knew that some experienced investors could make out fairly well in a time of rising prices, but the average family bore the brunt of the high cost of living, and the family on a fixed income was being driven up the wall. And so, to meet the real needs of most Americans, we began a steady effort to take the upward pressure off your cost of living. Of course, there was a faster way available to bring prices down. Many people suggested that we slam on the brakes hard and fast and bring about a recession, but that kind of shock treatment is harsh and unnecessary. We want to level things off, not shake them up and down. Step by step, we took those measures necessary to get our nation's house in order. Working with the Congress, we proposed to phase out the tax surcharge over the course of a year. We could not afford to let the surtax lapse in the middle of 2009 because that would have, let's see, oh, you know, the rest of this sentence is cut off. Sorry about that. I just realized that. So let me finish this paragraph, okay? We call for your support in our policy of holding down federal spending so that we are able to continue setting an example with a responsible budget for the fiscal year 2011. We call upon citizens to urge their state and local governments to cooperate in postponing spending that can appropriately be delayed. All right, so we'll stop there. There's just a little bit, there's a few more paragraphs left, but we'll stop because we've gone over. And thank you for watching. Have a great day.